trying to get everybody in right now. Just stay tight. We'll be there with you guys shortly.
Hey, welcome everybody that's joining us. This is another week of Xbox Talks on the Reddit Talk client. How's everybody doing? I'm joined today by Kevin, Ivan, and Mikey. How are you guys today?
Hey, bud. Doing good. Doing good. Just excited for another week. A lot of news came out this week, so I'm definitely excited to jump into those topics today. Grim?
Doing pretty well. Really looking forward to Strangers of Paradise. I don't know about anyone else, but I don't know. Like, I guess maybe because of Game Pass coming out with all the Final Fantasy games, I'm just in a Final Fantasy mood, so I'm really excited for that. What about you, Mikey?
This is just my weekly break from Elden Ring. I, I also play a little bit of Guardians, and been doing a lot of wedding planning. I getting married this August, so been pretty busy week.
Yeah, a lot of people have gone full in on Elden Ring. It's been pretty amazing. I've actually had kind of a weird experience where I haven't been able to play it too much, but my daughter, she's older, getting ready for college, and Skyrim was one of her favorite games ever. But anyway, she kind of was looking through the games that I had and was like, "Hey, I've been hearing a lot about this." And then 6 hours later, she's already like way ahead of me, and she's making like all these moves and stuff that make me look like I'm old, and it just made me feel old. I'm just like, oh my goodness, the torch has been passed. It's the new generation.
Well, sometimes kids will impress. I I don't have any little ones of my own yet, but I'm looking forward to the day that I have that past torching moment, because I dream about it, as a gamer and someone that plans to have kids. So I'm not there yet, but I get it.
I have cats. So that's the closest to little beings I have in my life, but I can see it definitely for sure. I get it as well.
You gotta see if the cats can beat Elden Ring, though. That's the real test.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple cats too, and if there's any ninjas in the house, that's them. They there should be a cat class, right? Oh, look, we're back to Skyrim.
I see what you did there.
So what did we want to lead off with this week? We got plenty to talk about, but does anyone have anything that's itching them?
Actually, I want to know what you thought of Guardians. We talked about it last week, but I kind of want to see what you thought about it. It's one of my top games, so I'm very interested to see your opinions on it.
So I didn't like sit down and beat the game yet, because obviously like I said, I've been playing Elden Ring, and now I'm turning into Grim playing multiple
Boo.
multiple playthroughs. I have one on Steam and one on Xbox. Um, but from what I played, uh, I was surprised that this wasn't a bigger hit, and I can kind of feel maybe Square Enix's little disappointment here and there, that it failed to meet expectations, because I can see why they set the bar high. The game right off the bat feels quality. Um, you're in your room as a kid, it's a little flashback. Your mom comes in, and it hits you with those 80s vibes. It hits you just like it hits you in the movie. A lot of care and world building feels like it went into this game. It feels like the team really treated it with a lot of love and respect. A lot of great references. Like, if you just walk around your room immediately, there's Tron. There's a baseball card collection. He's got D&D dice on his table, and he's talking about how he, you know, crit failed multiple times in a row with his bard. It's just a lot of stuff there packed into just the room, and that's just to start the game. And it feels very much like you're almost walking around in a Life is Strange world. I realize that they're both done by Square Enix, but different developers and also different engines that I looked up. One's on Unreal 4, and this is on the Dawn engine, I believe. And it's just it feels like a game that demands your attention. So I'm definitely going to be jumping back into it this weekend because just getting to finally test it. I loved it. It felt great, and I'm playing it on my PC, so I'll report back next week if the cross save functionality is good enough. But I liked it. It started off weird because one of my issues I always have with games, they had a launcher. I hate launchers in PC games. But you can change all the settings in game too. It runs great. I had it at max settings and I was getting over 120 frames a second. I had ray tracing on, but it's got DLSS support and all this other stuff. It feels like a PC ready game for the Xbox app, which is terrific. Some of those ports come over and they can be terrible. I have a lot to say about it in just a short amount of time I played it, but I love the game so far and I think it's great and I can see why you like it.
Nice, yeah. It's just the top game. Like I said, everything you said is spot on. It has that classic kind of comic book feel, but it's also a really great engaging video game. The music is solid, hands down, one of a great soundtrack. It just fits. Everything works together so well that it just boosts up the whole overall product. But sorry, I didn't want to take us too far off topic on it. On that, I was just very, very curious. I haven't been able to talk to you since last week about it, so that's my little shtick.
It's I mean, it just hit Game Pass, so it's kind of a relevant topic. A lot of people are getting a chance to play it for the first time. Seems to be one of those perfect fits for Game Pass, doesn't it? It's a game that the sales struggled, and they maybe want to expand that audience just a little bit and get new players in. And if it has success this way and kind of grows, maybe I'm kind of like a slow grower, a cult following, if you will. Even though everybody that's played this game has pretty much loved it, but as the audience builds, they might consider more downloadable content, or it might give it some legs for a sequel where maybe they weren't considering that at first. So I'm hoping that the Game Pass run really does it well.
If Square Enix is listening, I will buy day one a sequel. Just saying that right now.
One thing I thought was pretty interesting about the game, and then, like I saw the developers talk about because they did like a preview where they were talking about, oh, there's all this dialogue in the game, like random bits, and I kind of was like, yeah, okay, I heard that before. I'm sure everyone's gonna hear and see the same things, and like, yeah, you definitely get like the main story, that's the same thing, but like a lot of like I watched other people play, the same parts that I played through, and they do have like little like different mumblings, and I mean, you might hear something repeat, but like I was surprised that like, hey, wait, Rocket Raccoon didn't say that when I was at this point. How come I didn't get that? I think that's really cool. Like, and people are just not talking about all the little like nuances of this game. They're just like, oh yeah, that came out. Oh, that looked kind of cool. But it's like, no, they really made sure that when you play through a single player experience, you do get like something that feels pretty organic. It doesn't feel like everything's so scripted.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like you said, the little nuances too. There's so many little things that just really add to like that fun, welcoming feeling and that kind of atmosphere that the Guardians give. Like especially with the movies and the comics, they just captured a lot of it well, and there's so much replayability on it. So it's definitely yeah. I could go on forever about this game.
I have one negative since we're just praising the heck out of the game. I had one small negative when I was playing, and maybe it gets better. Hold on. Groot's voice sounds like it was done on an alien voice recorder. It sounds weird. It doesn't sound natural, like it's coming from a creature. It sounds audio tuned. I don't know if anybody else had that experience. Maybe it's because I'm wearing headphones, but it sounded off to me.
That's
was the
fair.
only thing.
It's funny because
Right.
one of the few complaints I've actually heard about the game is that there's too much talking, and I feel like this person just had maybe a bug up there. I don't know. They just seemed like they were looking for anything to complain about, and they're just like, oh, sometimes I just want them to shut up. And I'm sure whoever that person was, I don't remember. They're probably loving Elden Ring. So for me, I actually think it's amazing that they've got so much dialogue in there, and like Ivan was saying, it doesn't really repeat. It's not like you smash an enemy and you hear, the same catchphrase every single time, like it's a Duke Nukem game or something. Like, it's really well done.
Yeah, my only complaint about the game is it's not very friendly to sequence breaking at all. Like you have to go through the paces exactly how they lined it up. Because I remember even in the first stage, I'm like, oh, I need to jump up on this, and it just wouldn't let me. I had to kill 3 enemies and then I could do it. I was like, okay, I guess. But it really doesn't like you going ahead. You have to follow everything. And that's my one complaint about it. But they try and make it as enjoyable, like with the story and the characters interacting. And like you said, since they don't repeat, that's nice because I'm used to, JRPGs. As much as I love them, you hear the same like 4 lines of text all the time. It's pretty wild.
And sometimes it's really bad. Like, have you ever played a game and just had like whatever they say, it just is so annoying, and they say it like every time you do a certain move or something, like, and you're just like, man, I'm just gonna turn the game audio off and put on some music or something because I can't
Yep.
handle this.
Tales of Arise. I mean, I love it. It's a great game. I think everyone should try it. But like, you're gonna hear, you're gonna hear all their best moves shouted out every time they do it.
Well, you guys want to? Well, talking about high praise, you guys want to talk about Xbox claiming Metacritic's top publisher kind of acclaim?
Yeah, let's get into this a little bit. I know that actually the news went over pretty well. It was a really amazing year for Xbox games, even the games that didn't come to Xbox, which is kind of wild to think about. Psychonauts was obviously well reviewed. What else did we have in there? Flight Sim, Halo, obviously, even though maybe a lot of people aren't happy with where it's at least it launched well enough to where people had fun with it for a bit. And Forza, obviously Horizon was really well received. It's just people are kind of like, well, there's not a lot of games coming out the first half of the year. I've heard that narrative, but to me it seems like they just hit us with a good blast of games, and I'm expecting that to pick back up as the year goes on here.
Didn't they also get like highest average? Like I think I read something where it's like, oh, it's rare that a publisher gets 85 or goes over 85, and this is the first time ever they went with an 87. Like I think 80 is usually the highest a publisher would get as an average.
Yeah, it was the highest average ever recorded in Metacritic history, which is a monument and achievement to itself. They had Halo, like you said, Microsoft Flight Simulator, which was a big one for me. Psychonauts was an absolute treat that just came out of nowhere. I didn't, you know, I love Tim Schafer in that studio, but my expectations weren't all that high. And then when it came out, I was like, oh wow, this is actually a really fun game. It was something that I totally
Hello,
didn't
and
expect.
welcome
and
to
another thing
Xbox
that
On.
kind of just
Henry-
I got roped into because of Game Pass. Um, so well-deserved year, especially coming off of the whole narrative that Xbox doesn't have any great games or any good games, or that Game Pass doesn't have any, high Metacritic average games. And well, here we are. It's they're doing great. They're putting out great stuff. And there's problems here and there with it, like Halo, but damn, it's great year for Xbox. Fantastic. Hands off to them.
Yeah, and I think that's what really makes it so much more like, wow, this is such a high praise, is because like you said, think about 5 years ago, the narrative was completely different. It was Xbox has no games, to now being, hey, Xbox has games and they're one of the top publishers of Metacritic, so it's definitely something that I think is well deserved. I think they've put a lot of effort. Phil has definitely turned the ship around from where Xbox was heading into this just powerhouse of, making, Xbox synonymous with games. They kind of stepped away and they were trying to make it more of like an overall entertainment kind of system. But now they've really doubled down and refocused again on the games. And I think it's really shown it by obviously with getting this award or this acclaim, I guess you could say.
The other thing I want to point out is a lot of this was done with sequels. For Horizon 5, Flight Simulator, I guess is not technically a sequel, but they used to make these games forever ago, every single year. And Psychonauts 2. However, this year we have their more their OG original content coming out with Redfall and Starfield. So we'll see if they can do a repeat with something that's not as necessarily sequel based.
People were kind of sleeping on Redfall, and I'm excited for that to pick up a little traction. Everybody's talking about Starfield, obviously, and any news that drops, it's an instantly huge story. But Redfall's just kind of hanging in the background, and I think that's going to sneak up on a lot of people. It looks like a really interesting concept.
Do we know what Redfall is at this point? I've heard of leaks. I've seen leaked images that are like in 480p, but I can't get anything from a game that has a build that's been done. I don't even know what it's about. Is it like Left 4 Dead? Is it like Borderlands? What is it? Does anybody know?
I think it's similar to like Left 4 Dead, but I'm not 100% sure on it. I think it's going to be like a first person shooter, I believe. So I don't know. There's a lot of, I haven't really looked into it. I've kind of fallen off on my radar just with everything coming out now. So I'm assuming we're going to see a lot more at E3. I also wanted to let everybody know, if you guys want to come up, raise those hands down here at the bottom. There's a little hand button, click it. We'll bring you up if you want to talk about Metacritic or any of our other stuff. But yeah, Redfall. I hope we see more at E3.
Yeah, it's labeled as an online open world co-op first person shooter. So do what you may with that.
So you're telling me we're getting a Destiny-based game with vampires?
I mean, that's kind of like when I read that, or like a Borderlands. I don't know if there's going to be looting involved. It's just kind of, I guess we'll have to wait and see for more details. But for a game that is kind of imminent, it's supposed to be out pretty soon, and we really haven't seen too many details on it. So hopefully we do soon.
Yeah, I could see them stepping away. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think, because Back for Blood, while I thought it was a decent game. It brings a lot of that nostalgia from the Left 4 Dead series, but I don't think it was received well. So I don't know if they'll go down that route. But a Destiny style kind of looter shooter, kind of MMORPG kind of hybrid thing, that could work.
It made me think though, what would a Left 4 Dead open world be like? Wouldn't that be a wild experience? Because Elden Ring did it with the Souls formula. I don't even know how you would do it with a Left 4 Dead formula.
Well,
Daisy.
Well, and Halo even
I
went
know.
open world, so it's really interesting to see these franchises that we know maybe try out some different formulas. But I mean, even back in the day, Super Mario did it when he went 3D, right? Was that the first open world game? Kind of. Sorry, I kind of got a little distracted there, but it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out. How did we feel about? Was there any backlash to the news that these games? I mean, you know how it usually gets out there on Twitter and that kind of stuff. So, are there people taking shots at this or trying to pick it apart, or are we just kind of accepting that at least Microsoft is putting out some really quality games now, and it's something that maybe is building momentum and something that's going to keep continuing?
I mean, the only backlash I've been seeing is just against Elden Ring. I feel like that's been sucking all the air out of the room, But yeah, I mean, I think people are starting to notice because, Xbox started going up in sales, which is nice to see. So, I mean, people are definitely saying, hey, maybe I should check out that Game Pass finally, So maybe it's just, if anything, just going to help bring up subscribers, whether they're on a PC or they're going to get an Xbox now. I
Yeah,
think that's just mostly what it's doing, just generating sales.
for sure, and it's kind of a good segue in a way. The Series S, a lot of people kind of were down on it, and a lot of people are still kind of down on it, but it seems to be selling quite well. Don't we have some news on that this week?
Oh yeah, well, it came out that it's the second highest. The series editions of consoles is the second highest console this month for sales, behind the Switch and in front of the PlayStation. I don't know why I said the PlayStation. Somebody take it away from me.
Okay, old man.
Oh, my Nintendo.
you go back there, and we're gonna have to. That is so funny.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this has been such a monumental last week and months for Xbox. I mean, top, second best selling console finally. I mean, they've had it before, but still, I mean, on top of now Metacritic news, I mean, this is a train now heading full steam for E3 of just, hype and positivity and news for the Xbox Series. So I think E3 expectations are going to be high, but I mean, what a wild ride. I mean, who would have, thought, coming especially like we said 5 years ago, that we'd be seeing this kind of news so quickly.
And you guys brought up Twitter before for the other the flashback or people talking against it. One of the things I've heard to talk against this point for a second is that, well, the Series S is more widely available. Well, it's yes, of course it is. That was the decision Microsoft made. They made the Series S. It's not as powerful as the Series X, but it's $200 less and it's easier to make and produce. And during the pandemic, that turned out to be a fantastic decision because now they can just get them out and get them to store shelves and they're still getting eaten up. So, while people will say, well, it's more easily available and that's why it's outselling, it might also be just because it's cheaper. And, that's part of the reason that Microsoft did it. They could mass produce it more easily and it's cheaper. It's filling into
Are
a small step for next gen gaming.
are they though? Are they really a little bit more easy? Because I mean, I think sometimes maybe it's area dependent, but usually most places I've seen people are like, I can't get any kind of Xbox. I can't get any kind of next gen system. Granted, I live in Los Angeles, so there's a lot more people, per capita, everything here. So I'm assuming maybe my struggles are probably not the same that maybe other people might be seeing in little smaller cities.
I feel like online, just if you've watched the actual Xbox store on your console, sometimes the Series S will be in stock there, and through different retailers, it seems like it pops up more frequently. It also stays in stock longer, so I think that's kind of an indication that maybe it's more available. I mean, the other end of that could be it's an indication that it's not selling at all, but I think we're getting the data here to say that it's probably a case where it's selling quite well, and it may be because of the availability, but it seems to be doing pretty okay. I actually saw somebody say that they should just go ahead and make a disc version of this. I don't really know if there's a need for that, but I'm not really against the options for consumers as long as it's not presented in a confusing kind of way. It seems to be a hit.
That was Jez. Jez Corden brought it up and asked people if they'd like to see a disc version.
Yeah,
I
so
wonder what the price. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I wonder what the pricing would be for a disc version, because you don't want to get, I guess, too close to the 400 mark. Because at that point, you might want to just do a discless Series X.
Yeah, that's the other flip side. What if we drop the disc drive on the Series X? I would have purchased that. I've been all digital since like midway through the 360 generation, but I would think 350 would be a price point for a disc reading Series S. I think when we're discussing this, we forget a lot. Obviously, a lot of games are getting older. There's a lot of data that backs that up. But there's still a lot of younger gamers out there, too. And maybe when they're going to mom or dad, it's kind of hard to say, hey, I need $500-$600 for a new video game console. But $300 is a little bit of an easier sell. And I think I've said this kind of from the beginning. If you come in with the expectations that the Series S is a 1080 gaming machine, you're going to be able to play pretty much every next-gen game this year. Well, actually, you will be able to play everyone on Xbox as long as they don't stray from policy. So I think it was kind of a genius move, even if they did take a little bit of heat for it.
Another thing I've noticed along with the Series S, success, I've seen a lot of pictures lately about the X screen. People showing off their X screen along with their Series S, like in their office or other places. So it was great to see that success get around too. The the beautiful man we had for our interview a couple weeks ago. It's glad to
Andrew,
see that
yeah.
taking off.
And I don't. We might never see him back. We might have caught him before they got too big, but that thing is definitely taking off. I mean, I've seen Aaron Greenberg and Stein was commenting on it. We had just all kinds of huge tech people that have either gotten demos or purchased it for themselves. So congratulations to the X Screen team and that product. I had a feeling it was going to take off, and it seems to be well on its way.
Yeah, it's like stuff like that really drive a console sales and really show its versatility. And I think if I had to kind of describe one word about the Series X, or the Series S, it would be versatility. It's a great, next gen entry machine, but there's so much now you can do, especially people now like making the X screen for it. He was already talking about possibly maybe branching out. Who knows? It could be like turned into a little mini, with a mouse and keyboard kind of thing. Who knows? But I mean, it's a great entry level system for people to get into next gen gaming without breaking the bank.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and detractors, I guess like one of the main things was that they think it's going to hold back the Series X, but that's just not how it works. If you followed computer games for any length of time, you know that they can build games that run on all sorts of hardware and different specs and still provide a cutting edge experience at the top of the line. And it might be a little more difficult for developers when they have to consider developing for two systems like this. But really, if you can just notch back the setting bars like you do on any PC game, well, we'll turn these shaders down and oh, too much grass, we'll turn that down. And they can fine tune that pretty easily, actually, to a point where they're going to hit a frame rate and refresh rate that they're happy with for their titles. So I think it's not a big a deal as some people are trying to make it.
Yeah, and I think it shows too that if people are willing to work with, like you were saying, like figure out the right settings for it and everything like that. Like Dying Light 2 recently just got updated to where now it runs 60 FPS because at launch on Series S it was like 30, and they were like, "Oh, nothing we can do. The Series S is what it is." And then, well, they figured it out somehow. So I guess it wasn't what it was it? So like, yeah, if you could just figure it out, I mean, the CPU is still there, and if you're staying at the 1080 mark or under, you could do wonders with that. But yeah, you definitely can't push like crazy shadows or a lot of foil, grass. But you could still do some things.
Yeah, the same brand kind of console warring with the two systems was a little. I didn't expect it, and it seems to be kind of dying down. People are kind of realizing that these systems have intent, how they're supposed to be used, and once you get past that, they're both great options. I'm playing on my Series S more than my Series X usually, but I do like to jump upstairs and get on the big TV and and push all those graphics as much as the Series X can sometimes.
And I think it would be interesting to see how much more support, because like Dying Light 2, when they had the more time to work with it, they were able to get it to go. I would say, if anything, I think having the Xbox One and the PS4 still kind of lingering in the shadows, like the last gen systems, I think that's taking time from developers because they're splitting it across all these platforms. But maybe if they just had to focus on the current ones like Series S, X, PS5, it we might actually see more optimization for it. Honestly, that's kind of how I see the future with that.
Yeah, if you're looking for a real bottleneck, that is probably it. We haven't been able to transition to this generation as quickly as we have in the past. That's due to the supply chain issues, and that's not, you look at a developer and you're like, you can make a game that's will only sell to so many million customers, or you can make a game that sells to tens and tens of millions with the previous generation hardware, and that makes it a really tough position for them to say, yeah, we're gonna go full next gen and go all the way in. But I think this is kind of opens up like a wider discussion. The traditional console generation kind of seems to be like a dying dinosaur. With this, especially with Xbox, the way they reset this generation, we didn't change operating systems, and that was kind of a knock against them. They're like, oh, this looks just like the last generation. Is this really an upgrade or anything? And I think maybe we're getting to a point now where kind of incremental hardware updates are going to be the way of the future, and eventually they're going to probably go back and be like, well, we're not supporting the Xbox One anymore, and we don't want developers to focus on that. But so that's not going to run the brand new games, but the series consoles might still run a lot of the games into the next generation, just in the similar way that the Xbox One still does now with this generation. So this might be kind of a trend for the future.
Yeah, I wonder if we should do a poll on the subreddit and see what people have. If they have the Series X, if they were able to get the Series S, or if they're still doing still on the Xbox One X. I'd be interested to see that data. Kind of see, especially with all the talk about with the series selling so well and stuff like that. I don't know. It might be a little fun experiment to do, and then we can talk about the poll results on the next show.
No, that's a good one, and I think we're limited to 6 options maybe on a poll, but we could add some scenarios in there too. Obviously, the people that own both consoles, and maybe I'm not sure what else we could do, but that kind of stuff is fun. Just kind of a laughs and giggles type of poll. But I would be interested too, and what our users and ourselves are, what we're gaming on, or maybe we have a lot of that might still be on last gen because they can't find the darn thing still.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Well, did you guys want to talk? I kind of mentioned it about the Xbox heading the Xbox. Now I'm pulling a Mikey here.
Oh my God, what is happening to you guys? This is like the geriatric podcast.
Ageism.
If Xbox has full steam heading into E3, do you think that they should bring back, and I think this is going to get a lot, hopefully some people down below will come up and want to talk about this, and weigh in on their opinions. Do you think Xbox should bring back their Xbox showcase? They kind of did it a little bit. It kind of fell flat, I think. And I don't know. I think maybe it might be hesitant. Do they need to bring it back so close to E3? Do they need one at all? What do you guys think?
First of all, are we referencing this showcase they did at E3, or or like the ones they would do before showing off the Xbox One originally, stuff like that?
I'm talking about the why am I blanking on the name right now? But they did like a little series of shows that was like like monthly. They tried to do it monthly, and they did like 3 or 4 of them before they stopped. They were kind of like state of plays,
Oh,
but not state of plays.
see, so the Switch stuff does that, or the Nintendo does that too with their Switch games and all that. I like the big events still. Call me old fashioned. I like waiting for that one time of the year where everyone gets together and you just get absolutely blasted with news. The piecemeal stuff comes out and all it does is, well, what's Xbox going to do now that PlayStation came out, did their little showcase? Why hasn't Xbox done anything yet? Well, it's because we're still by the old format right now. And I still prefer it. I just love getting together. Like everyone gets excited. We all talk about games, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, PC gamers. We all see the same stuff. And we're all just like, whoa, did you see what Ubisoft came out with? Whoa, oh my gosh. Like, and I don't know, maybe I'm stuck in the past.
Yeah, see, like I kind of see Xbox in a unique position because they really have their boots to the ground when it comes to like the social media presence. And I feel like that's sort of supplementing for that. Because like PlayStation, they do a bit of both. They have like the state of play, which they do, a little more regularly. And then they have their big showcase, which is where you get the big announcements. So if Xbox says, all right, we're not going to do uh like our version of a state of play, we're just going to keep boots to the ground social media presence, and then maybe come out with a showcase. I think that would probably be, I guess, better for them, just because that's what's already set up. But for them to sort of shift gears and be like, all right, not only are we going to try and keep up with this Twitter stuff, we're also going to now do our own state of play and the showcase. It's like it might get too like muddied up, especially since they have Game Pass announcements like constantly. It's like half their state of play would be that, or whatever they call it. It would just be too much. But the showcase thing, I can definitely see. Like Mikey was saying, everyone gathers around. It's like, oh, what is Xbox going to do? But they have to make sure they got something to deliver with, because it's gonna, they're gonna be hyping it up, I would assume.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have the guy with the face 11 up here. How you doing, bud?
Hello, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. How you guys doing?
No, thank you for
Good.
that.
We're happy to
What
have
do
you.
you think?
Awesome. Well, you guys are asking about the showcase, right? I mean, well, I have my own opinions, obviously. I'm thinking that we absolutely need something of the sort by next year. As soon as Xbox starts implementing like Bethesda, all the new acquisitions, right? I think it's extremely important to show exactly what Xbox has in store, and that would be like the best way to do it. But I guess you could argue that you have like Bethesda, Activision, all those companies, right? They're already really big, so they kind of speak for themselves in a lot of ways. So I guess on the contrary side, you could argue that again, those big companies speak for themselves. You don't might not necessarily need a showcase like that. Um, every time I watch like E3 or something like that, I'm sure everybody here can relate. We're always like, oh, I saw Halo, I expected that. Oh, I saw this game, I expected that, right? The only time you really see games that are pretty new are is if like they're indie games. And I don't know if that might be like an opportunity to have a different kind of showcase, just for indie stuff. Well, we had like ID at Xbox, right? Like it was like a little like a segment in the past. And that's where we saw a bunch of games. Like, wow, it was like my first time ever seeing this game. We saw a lot of cool looking games, right? Um, but my point is at the end of the day that a lot of these showcase stuff, they show us things that we already knew about. So it doesn't. I'm not sure how crucial they are. Um, Back to my point about the new acquisitions, it may be a good strategy to at least do one of them, right? One or two of them during the first couple of years of having Bethesda, Activision, etc. on our side. again, to show what kind of power we're bringing to the table. And from there, I guess we could just see where it goes, right?
For sure. And hey, let
Yeah.
me say thanks for coming up, first of all. We haven't had many guests the last few weeks, and this is the best part of the show. So I'm kind of,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah, I kind of
Happy to be
agree
here.
with you. If you want to drop a comment, we'll even give you a month of Reddit Premium. So in the post here to say, hey, I came up and just for taking the time to come up and speak with us. And I think I'm kind of falling
Wow,
into your
awesome.
camp. I think Xbox could benefit from a show like this. They don't need it, but they could definitely put something out, maybe quarterly, or even Nintendo takes breaks sometimes. If there's no news, then okay, that's fine. Stay radio silent. But there's a lot of stuff in development, like we were just talking about with Redfall. Give us 5 minutes about what's going on with Redfall. You talk to the developers. You don't need to drop in
Yes.
gameplay footage. You can just kind of talk with them and say, hey, how's it going? What's the concept? Or what are you guys excited about? Then maybe pump up some additions to Halo. They could just go around their games and I think have enough content to fill in and hype it and also centralize this data. We have the Starfield team out there. They're just like, oh, hey, here's a little something. And then, over there's the Horizon team and they're like, hey, here's a little something. Well, why don't we bring this all in and make it a one one meal stop, where we can stop in and get all of our Xbox news in a way that's exciting and that promotes the games, and it's not just all over the place. Like right now, it feels like you have to go to 30 different sources to get to understand everything that's going on in the Xbox platform.
Yeah, I guess that's where maybe someone like myself it has like a different kind of perspective because like the average person isn't invested in this kind of stuff, right? So I don't know about you guys, of course, but like for myself, you already know about what's going on, without having to watch a show like that. So I guess that's where the opportunity of, like you said, centralizing all this information, right? So it's easy for, I don't know, like a new person who just bought Game Pass, right? Like, oh, like what am I getting into? All that stuff, right? It might be great to retain people through that, centralizing all that information, making it like hyped up, like you said, it's pretty important in the gaming industry, like hyping something up, obviously, right?
Yeah, the Nintendo things that they feel like events, right? And they're talked about on Twitter a week before they happen. People are just like, oh, I can't wait to see what they drop, and sometimes they don't really deliver, and that's okay. Maybe not what people were expecting, but it still feels like you want to tune into the next one, because eventually they're going to talk about something that you're interested in, and that's going to be the place where they're going to make the announcement. Like I feel like if they do want it to feel like an event, they have to also occasionally, add new news that people will run with and that will get picked up on the blog circuits. And I think you kind of made a good point. Not everybody is on Reddit every day like a lot of us, or on Twitter, staying up with every single piece of Xbox news. So they need to think about the casual gamers there too.
I was gonna add, sometimes I had forgotten, and this is gonna sound dumb at first, but you forget about Activision for a moment and how big they are, and Bethesda and all that. I could see 3 shows a year. We have the original Xbox studios and its
Yes.
core studios with, like the flight sims and the
Yeah,
Forza and all
this is
that
a good
there.
idea.
And then you have Bethesda Showcase, which they used to do during E3. They have tons of content that they come out with, and this is another way to get out like your updates for Fallout 76. Like they recently talked about the next 5 years for all that, or Starfield, or talking about the next Elder Scrolls. And then you have an Activision showcase because they're huge as well. Activision Blizzard. You have Overwatch 2, you have Call of Duty. You could have and this would fill like that empty news for 11 months out of the year. You'd have one every 4 months, which I think would be fantastic. When you brought that up, I just immediately, oh yeah, they could definitely do 3 shows a year and that would totally kill. So, I don't know your guys' thoughts on that.
I mean, Blizzard had a whole convention for a while, right? Like where they announced new
Yeah,
games, and I mean, they could do that once a year for sure, still in a digital form. Yeah, absolutely. They have enough of just that studio, so yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah, and so I posted this earlier on my Twitter when all this stuff started coming out about when the state of plays and people, but I was thinking have one big show for E3. And then afterwards, start doing deep dives like a month before that big title they just announced at E3 or they showed at E3. Start doing deep dives of that title, and start kind of progressing that way, like after E3. That way, you're still getting those those gameplay, you're still seeing what Xbox has. It's making some Microsoft synonymous with games and Xbox synonymous with games again. But you're also getting some quality content. You're really seeing, okay, yeah, I saw the theatrical trailer, or I saw, these crafted gameplay, that are all scripted for the most part on E3. But what is the game really like? And start doing deep dives on Redfall, a month or two before it comes out, on Starfield, on all these games, on Fable, on Avowed, all these games coming out. I'd like to see something like that. I think PlayStation did it for one of, I think the Unreal 5 engine, and it was beautiful. I love seeing stuff like that. They kind of got a little too technical, I think, with the, everything, but showing that gameplay and what it can do and what it's capable of was such a huge hype moment for that game.
Oh, for sure. I remember that. It looks great to this day. I gotta say though, I mean it's a little off topic, but think 2 years ago, we would not be able to have this conversation right now. There's so much happening with Xbox that we have to right now, like you guys said, we have to delegate, what we have to show in each section. Like you said, every 3 months or so, that's something we had. It wasn't even possible back then to think about having a show every 3 months. Xbox had nowhere near the amount of things looking forward, to have the ability to have. It's just.
Well,
I appreciate it a lot.
I know
It's
you
just
mean.
flowing, right?
Right now. It's great.
2 years ago, the feeling was, okay, well, these studios that they brought in or purchased or made, the initiative, or the what are they doing? It's now the 3 to 4 year payoff we're waiting. So that everyone was kind of in limbo, and now we're just oh man, there's too much.
Yeah.
The dam's gonna break, right? It feels like we're just gonna get run over with a wave of content, and then the no game people are just gonna have to go away, I think, because
hey, I'm diving into that wave. I'm happy.
I can't keep up right now.
Yeah. I was really surprised, because we're talking about 2 years ago. I don't know where your stances were, but that's what made me get the Series S. I'm I'm just gonna, mess around with Game Pass because at the time, if you remember, even Game Pass back then, there was a pretty big notable divide between what was on the console and what was on PC. And then I get the Series S. I really have a lot of fun with it, but launch day, Bethesda gets bought out. Then Game Pass starts doing more PC and console. Now the list is blurred. And it's just it's so wild to think because 2 years ago my mindset was oh, I'll just have this for the console games, and then I ended up going full in. I'm now I need a Series X because this is just too good. Game Pass is blowing up like crazy now.
It's weird. I think they're succeeding in that Xbox is everywhere kind of thing with the xCloud and with PC, and they're really busting down those barriers between the different platforms, and they're going to be dropping all these games on us. It feels like a great time to be a part of the Xbox ecosystem, and I know I say that quite a bit, but I just the momentum, is that the right word? It just feels like there's a lot of momentum and things are about to get real interesting.
Yes, I blame Game Pass. That $1 a year thing back then, it just totally blew it up. I did the math recently, a month ago, I think. It's just basic math off articles, but I saw a pretty confident number saying that the amount of Game Pass subscribers right now is somewhere in between I think it was 20 and 25 million subscribers. This is a month ago. Who knows where those numbers came from, but it seems like a fairly consistent metric. That said, you can say I don't know, half people are in just Ultimate, or half people are just paying for Gold, right, for Game Pass. And after the math, you realize that Xbox is making just off Game Pass $200 to $300 million every month. It is insane right now. It just blows my mind. And the fact that we have Bethesda, Activision, all these, and a bunch of indie companies, of course, from a long time ago, it's just insane to me how back to the title, Xbox top sales, the title of this talk, right? It's just crazy, that's a sale to me, the Game Pass stuff, and it all goes back to how much money Microsoft is making at the end of the day, right? Because we need money to produce good things, and it's great. I blame Game Pass at the end of the day. But for everything we have today, Game Pass is at the center of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To go off what you said, if everyone's at $10 a month, and that's not even including the $15 Ultimate, They are making. They're making $250 million a month. They're making three billion a year in rep, and that's just from subscriber counts. And Game Pass used to be this thing where it's like, oh, cool, this is coming out this month. I'll give that a shot. It's becoming this crap. I don't have time to play all these games coming out. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like, oh, that's gonna take up so much of my time. Like I want to try Far Changing Tides. I've never actually gotten to play Final Fantasy Lightning Returns. There's Kentucky Route Zero on PC just recently came out too, and that's one I've always wanted to try. It's like let me play some games first. Like there's so much content. It's becoming this the dam's breaking concept some more, and it's Game Pass. I love it.
Yeah, it's not a bad problem. It's a good problem to have. It's
I wish I had two bodies so I could play all my Xboxes.
For sure. It's just such an insane value compared to even I'm a child of the 80s. I'm ancient, but we back in the early NES when you were playing $50 a game for Castlevania and the like, to go all the way this far into the future and be paying $15 a month and having access to just all of these games, it's just such a insane thing. Like a childhood me could not dream of this, and it's just I really love it. And sounds like lots of you guys do too.
You can even tie like the business model in a way to like streaming, right? Like music streaming, because like back then before streaming, the only time you know that an album was bad or good or whatever was after you bought it. And Game Pass totally removes that the same way that music streaming did, I think.
No, and that's definitely a fair point. Yeah, it makes it so much more engaging and consumer friendly. It's easy to buy into Game Pass. It's other than the big negative, which isn't really a negative of your crippling backlog, but like we were talking about, to where it's just so much going on. But I think the pro is, I don't know, I look at that as a pro, but some people consider it a negative. But still, there's so much that Game Pass does well, and it's so consumer friendly. It's just hard not to really buy into it.
Absolutely.
And to do what you want with it. It's so much money for the value, or so much value for the amount of money you pay for it.
Oh yeah, I mean the proof's in the pudding, right? That's why we got like over 20 million subscribers consistently, right?
Yeah,
very true.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say what got me into it, right? Because I originally subscribed back when Sea of Thieves was on the service. Like what was it, 2016, 2017, something like that. Here. Yeah, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna buy that game, so instead of buying it, I'm just gonna do Game Pass. And by the time I was getting close, not even probably I got to maybe $30 worth of subscription, there was another game released. I'm like, well, I probably was just gonna buy that, so let me just keep subscribing. Well, that's way out the window now, because it's there's too many games for me to make that mathematical equation now. Now it's like they're basically giving me money.
Seriously, I mean, it's worth like 2 games a year basically, and you're playing way more than 2 games a year, obviously, right?
Definitely.
Like price wise, like $120 a year, basically.
Oh, I mean, yeah, definitely. Especially, I mean, we got Forza already. We got Gears of War with the Game Pass. We got Flight Sim with Game Pass. I mean, the value pays for itself already.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to beat, and it's like we kind of fallen back to the Series S thing. It's a great entry point for gaming. It's great for families on a budget, and not. It's just comparing to other platforms, it just seems to be the best value out there.
Yep. Have you guys seen that report recently? I tuned in a little later, but I don't know if you guys already talked about this, but I saw a report like maybe last week or so showing that Xbox as like the whole brand is topping sales growth like above everything. Like it is like the top right now. I mean, obviously, you could say a certain amount of it's just growth. There's no actual like numbers on how much it grew by, like how many Xbox bought, how many new subscribers, or whatever. But I think that growth, it's all evidence tying back to Game Pass, how important that is for the future and how successful it's making Xbox right now. It's just, again, at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding. It's happening because it's good. And there's no reason to stop, right?
I mean, this might be one of those situations where when you start from the bottom, you have no way to go but up. I'm not trying to say that too badly, but if they, like in Japan, they couldn't sell consoles forever, so they come out and sell like 10 consoles, and everybody's just like, whoa, they're blowing up in Japan. But it's not necessarily You can do lots of things with numbers and statistics, but I think that the one thing that you can't deny from this is you have to take away that it's a positive sign that things are moving in the right direction. So the Xbox One, it was not a successful generation for them. There's just really no other way to put it, but it still sold quite a few units.
Our boy Phil Spencer. He
Yeah, I
pulled
was
it
gonna
together.
say. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we're praising Phil, everybody.
I was just gonna add that basically what Foreman was saying is like, yeah, they had a pretty bad fall from grace, with the Xbox One and even the series, like Japan, right? It outsold the Xbox One in Japan's
Mhm.
like their lifetime sales, in
Mm-hmm.
2 years. So it's like, but the Xbox One struggled in a lot of places, and you know, I mean, it's still interesting to see that they're having such like a great growth. It really shows that they were able to turn the brand around because like sometimes you don't dig yourself out of that hole. Like, Foreman and I definitely always like bring up Sega and like sort of like, have a heavy heart when we do. But like that was one I couldn't dig up out of the hole, and I'm glad Xbox was able to because it's nice to see, brands stick around, especially when they have a lot of IPs that you like to play.
They're taking out with the same company too, Sony, right? Sega would have lost to like the PS1, I think it was.
It was weird with Sega because they technically started getting hurt by Nintendo, and then it got even worse with Sony. Sony was
You're right.
definitely like the direct competitor, but like Nintendo didn't help them out either.
Sega kind of lost their luster after the Genesis, and the Saturn was just a huge disastrous. It did well in Japan, but the way they brought it to the U.S. was just kind of like it just showed up. There was no marketing, and everybody was picking up. That's when PlayStation entered the market, and I have told the story of
too, the Segas.
Yeah, and I've told the story. I think they were 300 to 350, and the PlayStations were a little cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the Sega CD.
Right, and I looked at that and I was just like, Sega. I grew up on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis and Master System, and I was like, Sony. I'm like, what the hell? Sony can't make a game console. That's never gonna work. And here we are in 2022.
Yeah, it's still I got to praise them for that. They're still a small company. They're very small compared to especially Microsoft. Microsoft's like $1 trillion company. Sony's like 100 something. I think it's like $150 billion company. And who knows back then? Like it's definitely admirable.
Yeah, but Sony has a lot of hooks in a lot of places. Like I mean,
Yes.
they're in the movie space. They're still in the cell phone space. I
Entertainment
actually have a
as well,
Sony
too.
Xperia, but they definitely get around, and I think that's what really like is interesting about them too. Because like even if you say that they're a smaller company and things like that, the one thing I always love about Sony is that they are just so Sony. Like if you get a PlayStation, you're like, man, this is a Sony product if I ever seen one. They go full throttle with their pride, and they,
Yes.
if you like their products, you get it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, that they're definitely not the software, like they don't have their hand in the computer market like Microsoft, but they definitely know like how to give you a very unique experience, and it works for them really well. It's like Nintendo. Nintendo has like a curated experience that people really love, and it just works.
Yep.
I'm gonna take this a little bit left real quick. And did you guys see the Grand Theft Auto upgrades were announced this week? You have 3 days to buy it at a discounted price, I believe. Is anybody gonna buy this for the 18th time? Just up here, quick poll, yes or no?
No.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Even if
I
it's like,
already got
I think it's like $20, but still no.
Yep, I'm also out. I've just played the game too many times already, and I don't want to. It's kind of a cash grab. It really feels like it.
Yeah.
I mean, throw a free upgrade at us. You're milking that Grand Theft Auto Online to no end. Just stop reaching into my pocket for things like this.
And to defend against, another annual release we've seen for the past 12 years with Skyrim, they at least add modders content or they upgrade stuff, like they add functionality to the game. And
Yeah.
we're not getting that with this again for the third release. They released it on 360, then they released it a couple months on Xbox One, now they released on Xbox Series X, and it's like they're going to fully charge $40 here. I think sometime mid-April is when that price goes up, and it's like we're done with the game. Like,
I think what would make me buy it is if it was like cross platform. That'd be really cool.
I think for me, it's just like Grand Theft Auto Online part is obviously the big part of the game right now. So why not maybe bring people back under your tent for a little bit and say, hey, here's a free upgrade. And while you're here, maybe you haven't checked out online in a while. Like it seems like they still could have turned that into money without
Yeah.
doing it in such a bad front-facing
Yeah.
way, you know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and that's exactly what the point I was going to bring up is if they would have offered this for free, I might have jumped in. I might have went back to online. I might have started to, actually I probably would have because I would
I
have
will
played
have
the
for
single
sure.
player game, but I would have definitely jumped back into online and probably spent money there. Now I don't want anything to do with Grand Theft Auto. I'm just looking at number 6. That's all I want now is Grand Theft Auto 6. 5 is dead to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a total cash grab.
But isn't that
Mhm.
what they did with PlayStation? Isn't like the online free there, and then it's like a $10
Yeah.
upgrade for the whole thing, but on Xbox it's 20 flat.
I think it's free on PlayStation for a certain amount of time, and then after that, same style as Xbox, I would say. Where they're it's like a certain deal for a certain amount of time. I don't remember the exact time, but it's definitely less than like a couple months.
I think it's 3 months. I thought
Is it?
for the first 3 months. Yeah, I think
Okay,
it's the
there you
first
go.
3 months you get it, and then it goes up to $40. $40? Are you kidding me?
Jeez.
Just for a next gen upgrade?
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, it's a little wild. And speaking of people maybe that haven't been making all the right moves, Overwatch 2 has kind of been disappeared for a while, and this has kind of been a weird scene to me because they announced Overwatch 2 and it kind of killed any momentum that Overwatch 1 had because people that were
Yes.
playing it, they're just like, oh, well, what am I playing this for when you got another one cooking? And
Mhm.
but then they went kind of radio silent on it, and then this week they kind of dropped like almost like they thought it was going to be some kind of bomb or something. They came out and made an announcement, and they were just like, "This message is to our players. We're shifting plans to get this into your hands sooner. Thanks to everybody for helping us guide our path forward. We realize our content and communication has missed expectations. That change is going forward. The beta signups are now open, and they announced this, and it was kind of making news circuits, and the audience was just like crickets. They're just like, huh, like, hey, that's great and nice, and nobody really cares that much anymore.
Yeah. I didn't see that part. What I did see though is that they're sort of like teasing / announcing a gameplay, like actual gameplay coming up. So I'm pretty. I mean, it's not something I'm gonna skip over. Obviously, I'll click on it and I'll be happy to watch it. But again, it's not like I'm not gonna identify my gaming personality around looking forward to Overwatch at this point. Unlike the first Overwatch, like, that was really cool watching that come out and all that. It's like you really wanted to identify with it and like jump on the bandwagon. But it's like again, like you said, it's kind of lost now, like that kind of attitude. Who knows why?
Yeah,
And
yeah, definitely. Like, I agree with Foreman. They tried to make like this big old bombshell of like an announcement, and I mean, I think Blizzard's had no choice but to go radio silent, especially with how much backlash anything Activision was doing was getting instantly slammed with the whole sexual harassment suits and the toxic workplace. So I think they just shut down completely. And then now they thought, okay, we'll rise from the ashes like a phoenix with beta drop, and everyone's gonna lose their mind. But like Foreman said, most people are like, meh, all right, like I don't know. Also, Draco, I do see you down there. We will bring you up shortly. But yeah, it was like a total bombshell that was just like, didn't really go off.
I really feel for them because I kind of get this feeling that the people that are in Blizzard right now, it's kind of like a holding pattern, right? Obviously, the acquisition is kind of looming over their head, and there's a couple different angles here. Maybe they want to look good for the new bosses, and they're trying to, obviously Microsoft can't meddle or anything because they don't want to screw up this deal, but they're like, hey, we're over here trying, and we're going to listen to the community, and it's kind of positive to me because I really dislike the way Activision ran their games and franchises, but at the same time, it's just like, you're really going to have to come out and hit some home runs before you get that faith that old Blizzard used to have restored.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not a lost cause. Like you said, you hit that home run. But, I mean, literally, if you look at baseball, everybody hits a home run, here and there, right? It's just a matter of time, I think. I don't think people are totally canceled on Blizzard. Like the attitude that we're giving to it now. If you look at this, it's more we're just looking at it from a distance, and if it looks good, then we'll go in, right? But we're not gonna fully invest ourselves, seems like.
Well, this is something that should tell you everything about Overwatch 2. You type into Google, what is Overwatch 2? And the top thing that says where people also ask, what is the point of Overwatch 2? So
This is like a
Yeah.
philosophical question. Like,
Yeah.
let's
No, I mean, I
reflect.
guess even as Blizzard, right? You can compare it back to it's like releasing World of Warcraft 2. You know, why? People have already invested how much time into their profiles, into creating a rank, getting all their skins, all that stuff, right? It's just you're totally throwing that away. And I forgot who said it first when they mentioned Overwatch 2, um, of you guys here, but I agree wholeheartedly. People kind of saw Overwatch 2 like, oh, like now what do I do with Overwatch 1? Like, why am I playing this, right? Same kind of thing.
It kind of feels like it should be a games as a service. This is another one of those titles where why
Yes.
are you giving us a sequel when you could just upgrade the base game, throw in some new characters, whatever tweaks you're going to make for Overwatch 2. The only thing that they could do to justify this to me would be to throw in a campaign. And
to be well,
You're
well,
right.
hold on. You're hitting on the point here. Overwatch 2 and Overwatch 1, for people that don't know, the PvP modes will be combined. You will be playing the same experience on both.
Oh wow. Okay.
So this
That's
is
cool.
this is how bad the planning might have gotten.
wow,
out
see,
to
I
people.
missed that, so that's really
That was kind of like what my point is, but and this whole beta coming out is really interesting to me because the whole point of Overwatch 2 was actually because it was adding a campaign to it. And that was the catch for Overwatch 2. So the fact that they're doing a beta for Overwatch 2, which is going to be the same for Overwatch 1, I don't really, that's the part that it's like, well, I don't really get what you're doing then because this is supposed to be the experience that's coming to Overwatch 1 to begin with. So
yeah, it seems
Yeah,
like
I don't
That's so
know.
weird.
a lot of stuff got kind of lost in the soup here. Some of that was kind of news to me, and I've just kind of been following it from afar. And wow, it's extra confusing. That's all I can say.
Unless that's changed, that was what I've known since the beginning. And I was like, well, okay, so I don't really need to buy Overwatch 2 because the campaign might be great, but I just probably I don't know if I'll care too much. Their story writing's fantastic.
Hmm.
So
I think
maybe
they
you
didn't
will.
even know that at first. And then now they're going to campaign because they saw how popular, all those little shorts were basically.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, the guy with the wings, it's been awesome having you up here. We do have one more person
Yes.
that wants to come up and talk. We loved having
Yes.
you up. Any last words?
No, just thank you. It's
It
nice to
sounded
be
so
here. I'll
ominous.
definitely
Sorry,
I'll
like we're gonna
definitely tune
execute
back
him or
in.
something.
This is great talking to you guys.
No problem at all. Thank you for coming up. Like I said, drop a comment. I think you did already. We'll drop some Reddit Premium your way coming up.
You don't
Yeah,
have
you're a
to,
great
but
guest.
it's
Please come
great.
back again.
All right, boys. Have a good day. Appreciate it.
You as well. And while
Peace.
we're
Anytime, but thank you.
Thank you.
while we're getting our next guest up, I did want to talk about the code name that kind of got leaked when somebody was digging around on some Xbox documents, and they discovered the Xbox Keystone. I kind of, a lot of the early talk is that this is going to be maybe a USB streaming stick because there have been prototypes that have been leaked before. What do you guys think about this? Is this something that could help Game Pass get into more hands? Is it a good idea?
Well, I mean, you look at tons of different TVs nowadays come with a USB port. So Fire Stick was huge. Xbox coming out with a device that allows for streaming for Xbox games, cloud games. That's been their huge push, and you can just sign up and play them with it with a stick. I think we're onto something there, and I think that's a device that's coming out sooner rather than later. I would say this year, probably this fall holiday.
Yep, that's exactly the same thing I was going to say, Mikey, is who says it's a console? If Phil Spencer has mentioned previously that he wants to make this something like that you can play on smart TVs, without a console, something like I said, like the Fire Stick or like Luna from Amazon, to where Xbox, game xCloud is baked into the smart TV software. Maybe Keystone keys, there could be a little bit on the nose there, but that's maybe what he's talking about.
I'm kind of wondering though, like how successful it would be because I when I think of things like this, like in the gaming space, like yeah, Fire Stick was pretty big, but the gaming space, I think of things like the PlayStation TV or what was it, the Nvidia Shield. I wonder if like the Series S would be taking up too much of the oxygen from the room, where it's like, oh well, that's basically the console light that I would rather have because at least it's a console, and the stick is just too far of a downgrade. I don't really want to deal with that because it'll probably just be mostly cloud gaming. I don't know if you can actually install anything to it. It might be like too like abstract. And I think, like what Korkenstein was talking about, where Phil Spencer wants to get these things on TVs. I think it would just be better to have a dedicated app. I think that would get more use than to do the Keystone idea.
Well, remember, we're, most people listening here, and I think all 5 of us, we can easily say, or all 4 of us, Drake, hello.
Drakel too. I'm sure he's with us. Hey, welcome up, Drakel.
We're dedicated gamers, so we want that experience. And while we fiddle with cloud gaming, it's just not for us because we don't want that latency in our hands. We want precise movements and all this stuff. It's about reaching that general audience. It's about reaching the people who, because the gaming audience nowadays is so big, not because of Xbox, not because of Sony or Nintendo or even PCs. It's because of mobile gaming, which is the most casual market there is. And tapping into that with a service such as this, with a Xbox dedicated streaming stick, it might be a gamble, but it's a smart move right now, especially when everyone, the world has changed to being indoors. Go for this. This is the time, and this is your shot. Just don't be Google Stadia. Don't do that.
Shots
Anything
fired.
but Google Stadia. No, yeah. Oh, trust me, Stadia's definitely had their fair share of shots at them. Honestly, I completely forgot about them until he mentioned it. I think that's usually what it is Stadia comes up and makes news and stuff, and then usually just disappears after a while until somebody mentions it again.
Yeah, it's right. It's like a fish that's just laying on the ground, and every now and then it just flops, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
look, it's still alive. Like, what's happening?
Drakel, welcome back, bud. We see you're unmuted.
Yeah, your mic might be on mute. Your actual physical mic, you might want to check that out, or hopefully we can get you here. Oh.
Or we can totally blame the Reddit Alpha or this Reddit Talk client.
That's my favorite thing to do.
Thanks, Reddit Talk.
You can totally tell I'm from the Midwest. I say "ope" all the time. Like anything's happening, and it's like "ope."
Drakel, I think I know what your problem might be. You have to give permission, maybe, if you're on the web client. I know that's something new. You may have to give permission to your...
Can you hear me, guys?
Welcome.
There you are.
Okay.
Hit us.
It was on my end. It was not Reddit's fault. Let's not blame everything on them. How are
Very
you
fair,
guys?
very fair. Welcome back, bud. Good to hear you again.
I missed the last 2 shows because I told you it's impossible to know if and when the show is gonna be on. You really need to create a sticky, guys, either on the Reddit or even on the Discord. Just create a room and write update, because like 2 weeks ago I was waiting for a show. I was refreshing Reddit like 20 minutes straight.
No,
until
you're totally fair, and I'm not even. I just want to get ahead of you here a little bit. We have been recording on Saturdays now. We're gonna try to make this regular. We're looking at putting something in the sidebar of the subreddit that will announce that, so people can find us a little bit easier. And we will try to hit a consistent time, because we do like. Obviously, we recognize you from coming up before, and we want to make it easy for us all to get together. So we will do a better job of that. That's a totally fair ask.
Yeah, I agree with Foreman on that. 2 things. Thank you, 1, for the Discord. Love you for that. I'm sure Grim does as well. He's one of the mods over there for our Discord community. And 2, like Foreman said, fair criticism there. That's definitely our bad on getting something more streamlined for y'all.
It's more of a shame because right now the only way to get on here is if you stumble upon it on browsing Reddit, because if you notice at the start of the show it was like 40 people on here, and now it's 90 almost.
Yeah, it's kind of
it's a good format.
kind of a weird thing. It's supposed to do an announce, but that's also annoying. We don't want to be sending out a notification to 1 million users because we're having a show that probably 900,000 of them aren't interested in, and it's just we're trying to better balance that. And we'll like I said, for the time being, we do plan on recording Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, which would be noon Pacific. I think that's 8 p.m. British Standard Time. So we'll do a better job of promoting, and even putting a sticky up, like you said. That's a real simple way a couple days ahead of time to be like, hey, come join us so we can get your hot takes. So that is noted, and we will act on that. how about games? Did you have anything you wanted to hit us with that is in the Xbox sphere, sphere, I guess?
I can give my opinion on whatever you want. I'm pretty much up to date to all things Xbox. Games wise, Elden Ring has consumed my life for the past 10 days.
Welcome to the cult.
It's starting to become an actual problem. I'm close to finishing now. I definitely won't start the second playthrough right after. I will let it. I'll continue in the future. I don't know when, but right now it's really a problem.
On your first playthrough, are you finding this like to be a problem? Like you're leaving stuff behind. It's killing me when I'm playing. I'm at, I think, something like 80, 90 hours between my two playthroughs, and on my Xbox One especially, I'm just like so carefully going back to every area. Like, did I miss something? And it's like, do I look at a guide now that I've done the area to find the last items? Like, I'm afraid to leave spots, and I still have 2/3 of the game left, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm 80 hours in as well on just my first playthrough. I'm pretty much done. I won't spoil anything. I have to go to the last, do the last thing that progresses you to the last area, and the game is pretty much over. I've unlocked all the endings, but it's the biggest problem I found with the game is that it's impossible to know what quests each quest giver is giving you, because it's not like other FromSoft games. It's massive. It's open world. It's much bigger. There really should be just it's a simple direction to where you need to go. It's the same that because I guarantee you 95% of the people are gonna finish the game without even realizing there are quests. It's the same.
Yeah, it's a big game, all right. What class did you choose? What are you playing as?
Say again, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. What class are you playing, or what type of character are you playing through as?
It's my first FromSoft game that I've ever played. So I looked up a single class, and people were saying Vagabond is gonna be easy. That's what I'm playing. I have strength, dex, vigor. Pretty simple, no magic or anything. Another, if I could criticize the game or something, is that a lot of bosses are really designed either for summons or for co-op. It's basically impossible as an all melee class to beat some bosses.
Yeah, that's I've heard that from a few different people now, so that makes a lot of sense. So, well, you made a couple good points. First of all, we need to be a little more consistent and better about getting word out about these shows. So I just wanted to thank you again for finding us, even if it has been a little difficult the last few weeks. And we hope to see you back up here again in the future. Same goes to you. If you would like a month of Reddit Premium, just drop a comment in this post. We will find you down there, and we can hook it up for you. So thanks so much for coming up and being brave enough to talk with us again. And hopefully we'll check back in with you in a few weeks here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's okay with the Reddit Premium. I don't even know what it is, so maybe save it for someone else. I wanted to add that it's when the Activision acquisition was announced, they did announce an official number of 25 million Game Pass subscribers. So that's official.
No, and, yeah, we were talking about that earlier, so I was gonna add that too. So thank you for mentioning that. That's where that data came from for sure.
Yeah, and also I think in a couple of hours there is a podcast called Xbox Era, and I think Phil Spencer is gonna be on it. I don't know if anyone is interested. He's gonna be like not as an interview to congratulate them or something, but I did hear he's gonna be on for like 20 minutes. They will ask him some questions if anyone is.
It is their 100th episode. If you guys aren't familiar with Xbox Era, they've been kicking around for a while, and they've really been gaining a lot of traction. Earlier this year, they released, they kind of kickstarted it actually, a hardcover book about the history of Xbox that did really well. They've been pushing, and you can tell those guys work hard, and congratulations to them because, yeah, they landed the big fish. They will be talking to Phil Spencer. Actually, as soon as you get done talking to us, if you go online and search up Xbox Era, you will probably be able to find them just talking to Phil Spencer, which is should be of interest to anyone that follows this platform or brand. So that's another great thing to bring up. So awesome.
Yeah. Talking with Phil Spencer, I don't know if I heard you correctly there, but Phil Spencer is gonna be on there. They're not gonna be talking about him. Anyway, thanks guys. It was always good to be here.
No, you brought some good stuff to
It's
the
always
table.
good to have you, Drakel.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye, bud. Thanks for joining us again. We appreciate you. So guys,
That was a show.
Whoops, I muted myself. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, we were gonna actually, Draco brought it up, but yeah, we were gonna mention that as well. To after us, go check out our buds. They do another podcast from Xbox Era. Phil Spencer is going to be a guest there, so it should be a pretty interesting time.
I was going to add in only to circle back to Elden Ring for more, because he mentioned that melee for him had been impossible on some bosses. I find, like, I play an astrologer on my Xbox, and I find it to be way more difficult for a lot of bosses with the astrologer class because I have no room to cast spells. You get in a lot of these dungeon rooms, and the boss is on you immediately, and you can't even move. Like there's one boss, or there's 3 of them, and I basically just sat there and tried to cast this silver mist spell to just whittle him down over time, and I just sprinted around the whole time and died like 5 or 6 times before I even got one of them down. So just my experience, it can go both ways depending on just the size of the room.
Yeah, movement means a lot in this game. You have to have some room to dance. If you can't dance, you are in trouble.
But not to go too far back away, but Xbox Era, I've recently been checking them out, and they do great content. Hopefully someday we sound even remotely as cool as they do. Although they're on an entirely different track with all their news sites and all that stuff. And this started as a Reddit-based thing. They're great. Go check them out, and they'll be interviewing Phil Spencer, and maybe he'll drop some juicy tidbits.
Yeah, I can't wait for everybody to run with that for weeks and weeks, because anytime Phil talks, the gaming press listens. The Xbox Era guys do kick around the communities. You might actually see them. Nick, I know he's been in here a few times. They comment on some of the stories and post here, so we are happy to support them, and they're just some of the good guys out there in gaming media. They're not they don't regurgitate like a lot of the blogs do. They create a lot of original content. Obviously, they're bringing Phil out, so that's a big deal. So after that, I think we've hit almost all the big stories this week. If we wanted to touch on a few last things, if you haven't heard, Microsoft announced kind of their efforts with renewable energy and trying to make the world a better place, like a lot of big corporations are. A small change that's going to make a big impact is that if your console is in energy saving mode, you're going to be able to receive updates while it's off still. That's a big change, and a big part of the reason a lot of people don't use energy saving mode is because they don't want to come home and have to download a 40 gigabyte update to their favorite game. They want to be able to play it. So this is going to let a lot more people keep it in that lower power state, which when you multiply that over millions of Xboxes, that's a little thing that can be a significant thing. So that was kind of cool to see. Another thing that happened is that Andrew Witz, he was the multiplayer lead for Halo. He left the studio. And at first I was just like, oh man, they must be really under a lot of fire over there, as obviously a lot of us have seen a lot of the vocal fans who are maybe not so happy with the state of the game. But I had somebody kind of nudge me, and they said, that's just kind of a natural thing. The guy was there to help them develop the game, and he got it up and running and into a good place, and it was time for him to move on. So maybe some fans are reading a little bit too much into that, and I feel like it's probably the case. So it's not really anything major, as some fans are trying to play it up. It's almost like some are trying to take a victory lap. They're just like, oh, see, it's not working right. They fired that guy, and that's not what happened here. So
no, definitely not. This is standard in the industry. Once somebody gets done with the project, they usually leave. I think people kind of ran with a little bit of a narrative. I mean, it doesn't help that Halo, kind of hasn't really been doing, or hasn't been getting the praise that recently, because it's kind of staled a little bit. You know, I still think it's great. I still think it's a fun time, but the content coming out, I think they're kind of a little bit too long right now, and people are waiting for the next thing. So seeing somebody leave, it's bad timing, but it's standard in the industry. Once you're done with something, you usually move on. You get another offer, you go to another project, something of that nature.
You know, the fallback might be kind of be, well, is Halo really complete right now? So why is he leaving? It's like, well, when you have another opportunity to go to, and you got to take your shots. This is, how long should he wait to leave? And I think if he's already going to leave, now's the time to do it. So hats off to him. I think Halo Infinite at the start, terrific. I think it's got a lot of promise. So wherever he goes, best of luck to him.
Yeah, I kind of actually agree. Despite what you might think about Halo and where it's at now, what it launched with, and even though it was delayed, it was a pretty solid experience. The gameplay is fun. I think most people agree with that. Like the core mechanics are, they're fun and engaging, and it's a good time to jump in and play a game. All the complaints have been around. Well, we have 4 maps to play, and this whole battle pass thing, chasing these cosmetics is just kind of not motivating like maybe it should. So a lot of the problems that they need to fix are on the back end and that kind of stuff. And maybe this was just a case where, yeah, the timing was right. And I don't blame anybody for stepping away at that point.
I kind of wonder, like, because you mentioned the maps, I wonder why they don't just like use old maps as a way to sort of drip feed us content while they figure out Battle Pass or even seasons and stuff. Because I mean, Halo has a huge history, and if they can just like bring those over and drop them in, I mean, the game, like you said, the gameplay is great. I would love to play some old maps with the new Infinite gameplay going on.
They would, that would be more impact than a new map. Those maps are cherished, and people know them like their backyard. That would be one of the best moves they can make. But for whatever reason, we haven't seen that yet. So it's I still have a lot of faith in Halo. I think it's going to get to a place where people are going to come back to it, and maybe a lot of people that have already written it off. And I await that day. I hope to see it.
Also, it might be kind of an unnatural segue, but you did mention the energy saving mode thing. I just wanted to bring up the fact that bringing that out is huge to me. Before, and I believe these were correct. It was something like $16 a year to run your Xbox in instant on mode. Now, it might not be a lot, but when you've got tons of devices that are always on doing that, whatever you can do adds up. And with me having 2 of them, $32 a year, we had them in energy saving mode, which comparatively is like $4 a year. It's quite a bit different. Actually, no. What was the average cost? 50 cents a year in energy saving mode. Sorry, I had to bring up an old article where someone measured it quite a while back. It was 4 kilowatts an hour versus 131 kilowatts an hour. But I bring that up because I can get the updates now, and that's been the worst part about turning it on in energy saving mode. I'll be ready to go.
Yeah, it's a big change for a lot of people. I think they're really going to be happy to hear about that. So, like you said, it's a little bit that kind of adds up. When I look across my house, I have like 2 old Xboxes. I have the Series X, the Series S, and all kinds of other gadgets and smart devices, just like any modern house. And finding ways to cut back on that power usage is always a plus, and it's good for Earth. We need this planet, so it's a good move. I'm glad that they're putting effort into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing too about the updates and energy saving mode. I think a lot of people wanted the updates, but then now, they it's just they didn't want, especially people with not so great internet. It kind of gives them now the energy saving to update and not have to come back home, and now they got to wait 2 hours, 3 hours to play their game. Now you can just put it on instant. You're saving money, and you're still getting your updates when you need them the most.
Right, so I leave one console on now that I can stream from, because I'm pretty sure that you can't do that from power saving mode. But the other ones I'm going to shut down, and I'm going to put them all in the power saving mode. So I hope more people do that. It's like I said, this is kind of people were talking about it, but it also kind of slipped under the radar a little bit. That's a pretty major change.
I think anything right now is slipping under the radar with Elden Ring. It's all my Twitter feed is. It's all it's been. Elden Ring. Maybe it's just because that's what I've been into, but everything seems to be disappearing due do we have time for another topic, or?
Yeah, we can. We're at like a hour 20 right now, so we can go maybe another 10, 15 minutes.
I was gonna say, do you want to talk about Elden Ring some more, Mikey?
Well, actually, I was going to bring up another one of my favorite games that we finally got kind of an announcement for when it's coming. Dead Space. If anybody,
Oh,
has
yeah.
That was big news
that
this week.
was-
I'm not so I missed the first Dead Space, so sell me on it.
Oh, go back and play it. It's the difference between Dead Space 1 and 3 besides graphics is Dead Space 3 almost became this action game, especially with co-op added in. It just, I don't know if it was EA getting their hands into them or what happened with Visceral there. I miss Visceral because Dead Space 1 was one of my greatest gaming experiences a few years back when it came out. It was just this raw game, and I remember trying to go for the achievement with only using the plasma cutter pistol, and that's how I played my whole first playthrough, and it was just gut-wrenchingly hard, even on the easier difficulty, not even the hard modes, and it's just it scared me, and I hate horror movies. I do not do well with them, and this was one of my favorite games of all time. So I am quite excited for the release, the remake coming here shortly.
Yeah, it was a solid title when it came out. It was definitely, I think, a little ahead of its age, and it was scary. It was engaging. It was just all around like this was like the pinnacle of like where we had some really awesome like third person action adventure kind of thing, but now you had horror mixed into it. I mean, Dead Space. Yeah, I would say definitely go back and play it. I'm not sure how well it's aged, which is why they may be doing a remake, but it's definitely something that it was a must play for sure.
When I think about that time and like the third person games and all that, EA and Visceral, another one that I remember they sort of put a wrench in was Army of Two. Does anyone remember that game? Like that was,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that was another one that like both of
That
those, I
reaction
remember,
was so genuine. I loved it.
yeah, but like I remember like it was almost around the same time. It's like Dead Space was doing its thing, and I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, so I love the horror stuff, and this was like right there. I mean, it was a little more alien than Resident Evil with the zombies and stuff, but still, it was great. And then Army of Two was also great, and then at the same time, they kind of both went into this direction. And you're like, wait, what's going on? Such a heartbreaking time in gaming, I thought, watching EA games like have something and then just write down like it was the worst.
I feel like we could do a
Yeah,
whole
with
show.
like
No, go ahead.
what? No, you sir.
All right, I was
You
just
first.
gonna say I feel like we could do a whole show of franchises that maybe started off amazing and for whatever reason the developer took it to a different angle and just kind of killed them. I think back to SOCOM personally on PlayStation, but it was it was the first like online headset communication thing, and I bring this game up quite a bit because it was amazing. And then all of a sudden they saw Battlefield and they were just like, yeah, we should, what we should do with this game is add vehicles and giant maps, and that just wasn't the type of combat that those players were looking for. So it's just it sounds like maybe both these franchises were kind of the same way, where they started off beloved and then they started to get a little weird with their design, and you can't stray too far from what made you great, and it's sad when games do that.
Yeah, like I loved Army of Two. It was a title that I kind of had a little small making in when I was my time with EA, but yeah, I love that title, and like I was always like, why didn't they do more of these? Like, and then you had Joseph Fares come out where he's like doing A Way Out and It Takes Two, and I'm like, yes, I love these games. Like, it was such an untapped market. But yeah, Army of Two was a great game. Dead Space, it was such a magical time back then.
I would
You're
say
really making me miss split screen gaming right now. You're bringing up Army of Two, man. That was one of my. I was muted because everybody else was also excited, but Army of Two was another great experience for me, and I don't even think it got rated that high. But man, did I love all those games.
it's one of those games that I see just like we are now. There's certain titles that maybe when they launched they weren't great successes, but over the years they kind of find a following. I feel like maybe Viva Pinata kind of falls into that category where it got shelved because the sales numbers weren't hitting obviously what they were targeting, but as time's gone on, people keep going back to these games, and it's like a cult movie. It's the same type of concept, it releases, it's kind of meh, and all of a sudden 10 years later, people are just like, that game was so good, and God, they need to make another one, and I feel like these titles kind of fall into that kind of thing,
Oh my
especially Army of Two.
Viva Pinata. Yes. Such a classic game. I was thinking we should do a show now, like, retro gaming like once a week. Like it's just kind of me just thinking out loud on this fly here. But it would be cool to have like a Reddit talk of like retro games, and we pick a game either for the month or every bi week, and then we play it and come up and talk, see about people coming up. Like I kind of started that, with Mikey when we were doing the Game Pass Game Club kind of stuff. But something like that for retro gaming with a Reddit talk included would actually be pretty cool.
I would be down because I'm always playing these older 360 games that just flew around to the radar.
Meanwhile, I'm like Castlevania collection. Like quietly, Xbox has built a really large stable of truly like 8-bit retro gaming, and I've bought just about all of them. The Namco collection, and you might say, especially Capcom, they're a little greedy because they release these games every single generation. But I feel like on Xbox now with backwards compatibility, like this is a library that's going to be cross-generational, so I feel comfortable buying these games hopefully for the last time, and I have just probably 100 of them. And I love it when they bring back classic retro and arcade games. I just wish they could find a way to bring back Marble Blast Ultra, but that's also another topic for another time.
Yeah, I just wanted to add like Neo Geo if you're looking for those older games, but mainly what you said before, Foreman, where you were saying that like we talk about these games that kind of flew under the radar, and we go back and say, "Oh, that game was great" and stuff. Doesn't that kind of remind you of Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like that might actually be a game where we're going to be talking about it in like 15 years from now. Like, man, that was a good game, and I feel like Army of Two was like that, and so was Dead Space, where it's like people were genuinely in love with those games, but because they weren't like a Call of Duty type seller, we're talking about them as if they were like these, very obscure things, but like they were good. It was just they weren't blowing it up, same thing like Guardians of the Galaxy now.
Well, so here's a question for you. You talk about retro games. What do you guys define as a retro game? Grim brought up 360 stuff. Foreman brought up 8-bit stuff. What counts as retro to you?
I think anything that I don't know. I mean, I could see anything from maybe like the last, maybe not within the last like generation or two. Something that maybe spans like multiple generations. Like a generational gap could be considered maybe something retro.
Yeah, for me, it's 2 generations back because just looking back at 360 and PS3, that was a different time. Like the games were definitely different. I mean, towards the end of it, not so much because towards the end of it, we had GTA 5. So yeah, GTA 5 is retro. But, like,
that's right.
Yeah, but like Dead Rising, that would be retro, I would say, because like that needed a remaster. So when you see them tapping into remasters, I think we're in retro territory. And I think that's a good cutoff because that's roughly like 15 years. So, a little wiggle room because 20 years is usually retro from what I remember. Like when I was playing GameCube, people were like, oh man, the NES, and I'm like, really? Okay. That's retro. But yeah, I think 15, 20 years is a good cutoff.
I feel like 360 is probably considered retro at this point. 2 generations back is maybe a rule of thumb for me. Obviously, everybody's going to have their own standards. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like 7.7 years is when retro games, something like that. But it's just, it's kind of interesting concept. Now, as an older gamer, I'm huge into kind of watching where the industry came from. I think one of the coolest things about people that are middle-aged right now is that they have grown up and watched this industry from its infancy, and they've grown with it. So we started way back, when Donkey Kong and basic arcade games, and now we're playing these revolutionary experiences, and it's been such a fun and interesting ride. And going back and playing those old games kind of gives a respect for the different leaps and moves that they've made through the generations. I think I brought up Super Mario World earlier when that went 3D. Like that was a wild concept. The analog stick was a wild concept. So it's retro gaming is huge. If you go on Twitch, speedrunners and that kind of stuff where they play these old games, it's some of the most watched stuff out there. So I love that people are embracing it, and I think it's just something that's going to keep growing.
Yeah. Oh man, like now I'm thinking of like all these games that have come out, and I'm just like, Oh yeah, like you mentioned Castlevania, and I'm like Symphony of the Night. It's like one of my favorites. Yeah, there's just so much potential there, and I think it's amazing to see. Um, and like I think what Grim was saying too, just now that I think about it, gaming was different back then, and I think this is another. I know people are getting tired of me probably praising Game Pass, but a testament to Game Pass and how much it does to put eyes onto games. And back then, while gaming was popular, it's not the powerhouse that it is now. We're getting a ton of movies. Back then it was like what Super Mario Brothers movie. We had the horrible Doom movie. Some of the
Erase
horrible
these.
Resident
Erase
Evil
these.
movies.
We're cutting this part of the
Yeah.
podcast out. Nobody wants to remember those.
Yeah. Yeah, like we had like it wasn't as mainstream as it is now, but Game Pass brings that now. You're getting people that are maybe weren't into gaming now into gaming. It's it's kind of like the cool thing to do. And I think I think retro, it's just thinking about it now, it's like, wow, we've really spanned so many generations. And it'd be cool to have a retro podcast. Actually, that's something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure somebody does it, but it's maybe something we can work into the subreddit if the community wants it. We don't want to spam you guys with us being nerds and talking about retro stuff. So
People
let us know
definitely
if
do
you
it.
guys like it.
Yeah, it's a big field, like I said, and even like on top of that, you think about new games that are retro styled. Like that's a whole genre of games too. Something like Stardew Valley really doesn't stray that far from the original Harvest Moon type of thing, And
Yeah.
it's like I said, there's an audience out there for that kind of stuff. So it's a cool concept, and like I said, I'm really happy with Xbox and the way Phil came out and said that that's important to him. We need to archive these games and make sure that people can experience them in the future, just the same way that we do classic music and early day movies. They preserve them and save them so we can see where the art started and where it came from, if nothing else, just for that.
Yeah, the one thing I do miss though, like, because you were talking about like, the gaming, it's getting bigger now, I feel like we kind of lost a little bit with that too in some ways. Because like, we have indies, which are great. I love indies. I think they're kind of filling this void. But I miss like B tier games, like Games with Gold recently had Hydrophobia. I don't know if it's this month or last month, but that game was awesome, for a B tier game. And there it is. Like, I hope people downloaded it and checked it out, but that game was sick. And I don't see anything that fills that space today. It's like it's either a broken game that needs to be seriously patched, like Battlefield 2042, or, like really well put together games like Elden Ring, but I wouldn't call either of them B tier. They're both technically like big AAA games, but, just depends on how well they were developed.
Well, I would say, a good B tier, I think by your standards, would be Far Changing Tides. I would suggest go check that one out.
Yeah,
Yep.
probably because before that, I would say the last B tier type game I played was Recore, and I really enjoyed that. But like, I can't even think since then if I've experienced anything.
I think this is where I love Game Pass. Again, I know we kind of keep going back to that, but Game Pass lets me play a lot of a lot of these more obscure titles that I wouldn't want to spend money on, or that you might call B tier. They're definitely, they're not marketed well, and they just kind of show up, and all of a sudden you're like, well, okay, I'll try this out. And I think we've all probably up here found some personal gems. They might not be reviewed well, but games that you love that are obscure. I like to bring up Forager. This is a great example for me. I would never have spent a dime on this game. Fired it up one afternoon, and I spent a solid week playing through it, enjoying it, and then I was done with it. And when I was done with it, I was just like, thank you, Game Pass, and I can't wait to find my next game like this. So it's there's room for that. And it's so personally for me, when people are chasing all these AAA games, like that's where I want to be. I want to see what you're kind of saying. What are these obscure titles?
Forge is a great one for you to bring up, because I was playing it back on Xbox One, and when the Xbox Series X came out, I was excited for the CPU upgrade because I was nearing the end game and my console was chugging.
I had the same experience. Yep.
And as soon as I got on the Series X, that CPU power kicked in, and I was like, yeah, I can finish this with over 10 enemies on my screen.
And it wasn't a video thing at all. You're right. It wasn't the graphics, the video card or the GPU. It was there was so much going on the screen. It was like maybe if you think about a strategy game where, like SimCity, where your city gets too big. I think is probably the best analogy. And all of a sudden your computer or your system was just like, you think that thing's going to start on fire. I would recommend Forager. I'm just going to throw that out there. Available on Game Pass still. It seems to be the Humble Bundle, I believe is the publisher. Like the games that they find, I have a lot of fun with. So that's a publisher I watch out for.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember I actually played Adapter, and then I think Terraria, I think, is the game that you like to play as well. I think I've seen you on as well.
Don't. I have an addiction. We don't want to get into that.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, like one of the first games that we did from Game Pass Game Club was A Plague's Tale, and that was something that wasn't a AAA title, but it was such an amazing title, and on Game Pass like day one, that it was just it's pretty cool. Like it's actually pretty awesome to see some of these B tier games, that aren't really B tier, in the sense of gameplay, their AAA stats, but they're just so good and they're so unknown. But I love seeing stuff like that. Studios, like Raw Fury is definitely one that I think gets a little bit more praise, that should get more praise for some of their great games, like the Call of the Sea that they did and everything like that.
Yeah, good development house there. It's like I said, that's kind of my wheelhouse, and people get obsessed with these AAA games and stuff. And I have spent far more time in the last decade and maybe 2 decades of gaming playing things like I guess Minecraft even started that way. It's amazing how big some of these games become. Stardew Valley is another great example. I'm sure when that one guy was crafting that, I don't know the developer's name. I think it was Concerned Ape, but anyways, when they started developing that and making it in their basement or wherever they were creating it, they had no idea how big that game was going to get, and I just love that stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know about you guys. I know we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. Our first 2-hour show. I mean, the conversation's just been great. We had some really great guests on too, and everything like that. Did you guys might want to wrap it up soon?
Seems like it'd be a good idea. I would like to mention that we are going to try to do some upgrades with this. Maybe have a video version on YouTube where we'll be able to pull up some clips and stuff that you'll be able to listen to after the fact in case you do miss us live. But if not, you can always find the archive on the subreddit and listen in post, because I do take that to heart, that we have been a little hard to find at times. So we want to make sure that you guys can join us if and when you want to at your convenience. So we're going to work on getting this out there and more ways for you to find. Thanks for everybody that joined us today. We will be handing out Reddit Premium to those that requested it, that were brave enough to come on stage. Grimpavise, would you like to add a little something about the community Discord? Yes, he would. Look at so we have a Discord server. I'll just drop this in real quick. You can find that at the top of the subreddit as well. It's a great place to catch up with us and kind of talk live throughout the week about the latest gaming news, maybe when you can't be on Reddit if you're at work or you just want to check it on your phone. It's a great bunch of people in there. What are you guys going to be playing this week? I think I already know the answers, but let's start with Michael. Michael? Sorry about that, Mikey.
Did you just call me Michael?
Yeah, stop it. I'm not your mom.
Is that your Nintendo PlayStation moment?
Yeah, there it happened.
I haven't been called Michael since I was 29.
You're not in trouble.
At least you didn't drop the middle name like you were in trouble or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Actually, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring. I'm actually going to try to go back to Cyberpunk. Might be a
nice.
curveball.
Yeah, that one's been looking at me.
Yeah, I dove into it and I played it, and then Elden Ring came out. But I was actually really liking Cyberpunk. I just have to play what everyone else is playing at the moment, and I also am a huge Souls fan. But it'll be Cyberpunk this week.
So hear me out, because Elden Ring is kind of known for being a quiet and kind of sparse game. Is Cyberpunk kind of like a nice contrast to that, because there's characters and interaction and story, more of a narrative maybe?
Oh, there's way more narrative in Cyberpunk. The background and the whole Souls universe and Elden Ring lore and all that is fantastic, but it's not the building that you get from Cyberpunk. Sitting down with individual characters is much better in Cyberpunk than having to hit Y multiple times on someone in Elden Ring to get them to get through all their dialogue options so you can just find out where the next quest is.
Shut up, where do I go? That's my World of Warcraft style there. I just like quest, quit.
Yes.
How about
the narrative
yeah.
For Cyberpunk is a lot more streamlined. It's definitely feels a lot more natural.
Is my mic working?
Now it is.
Oh, you're
Okay,
back.
great.
Hey. Hi.
Well, yeah, Foreman already said my bit for the Discord, but I just wanted to add on for the Cyberpunk. That game, like I originally played on launch day on PC, and I think I might revisit it myself because, man, like the experience is just like, because we're talking about the narrative, like that game really does pull you in, and like the sense of scale, because it really stays. I had it locked in first person all the time, even for driving, and I really just felt like I was in Night City, and when people were talking to you and stuff, it almost felt like a VR experience, except without the motion sickness.
Oh yeah, definitely. The reverse. I left Cyberpunk for Elden Ring, and then so I'm with probably this week to go back on to what we were talking about for playing. Yeah, I'll probably be playing some Elden Ring. I leave for New York in a couple of days for some vacation time, much needed vacation time, but. I'll probably be playing Elden Ring, and I've actually been playing House Flipper for some reason. And we're not going to go into that.
No,
but...
we are. Next week we are going deep into that, or not next week because you'll be gone. But
House Flipper, let's talk for another hour. What's wrong with you?
When you come back in 2 weeks, I want a full review on this because that game, I just wanted to check it out.
I shall.
Sounds
I
good.
definitely will. I could definitely give you a good review on that. But so probably just Elden Ring when I have the time between packing and getting ready for my trip.
Terrific. Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to catch up on that. We will miss you next week, but we will still have a show. So we will see you all Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to commit right now. I'm just committed, you guys. I'm sorry. Just so, like I said, we want you to be able to find us. So thanks again for everybody that joined us. Thanks to everybody that listens to this in the recording form. We cannot wait to talk some more Xbox games with you next week.
Yep. Take it easy.